Good evening. Tom Gibson here from Nye County and Channel 46 from beautiful downtown Pahrump, Nevada. And my guest tonight is Karl Mitchell of Big Cat Encounters. Hello, Karl.
Hey, Tom. Hi, Pahrump.
Tonight we'll be discussing animal control issues, and some of the issues that Karl has encountered through his Big Cat Encounters here in Nye County and elsewhere. So again, good evening, Karl, and what can you tell us about animal control's latest issues?
Well, from what I understand, the Nye County is running out of funds to run the shelter. That the shelter itself is closed to the public, and that there are no services being rendered to the public, such as euthanasia or any type of operations like that. And that's because the funds are non-existent.
Are you saying that if a person wanted to go to the shelter then to get a dog or a cat, they'd be unavailable?
They'd be unavailable because it's closed to the public. If you had an old dog that needed to be euthanized, there's no euthanization service. There's no public services at all for the citizens of Nye County due to the shutdown of animal control.
And just so the public is enlightened, what is, to your knowledge, is the function of animal control?
Well, animal control primarily is to maintain dog licenses and rabies licenses and pick up errant dogs, bite incidences, and to make sure that if someone's bitten by a dog, that the dog had a rabies vaccine. They're to maintain some kind of safety protocols for the community, and this is based on or funded by the purchases of dog licenses, spaying and neutering, and this type of thing. Now, evidently, Nye County doesn't have the money to run the shelter, but for the last 5 or 7 years, there should have been $40,000 or $50,000 every year put into a fund to operate the spay and neuter aspect of it and to operate the shelter. They should have $250,000 sitting in an account that was designated by state law, but for some reason that money has been commingled, I guess, or I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, let me get this straight. There's supposed to be a fund then set up for animal control through the state or the county?
It's through the county. It is dictated by state law as well as, I believe, county ordinance, but that what has to happen is a fund, a spay and neuter fund is established so that if someone gets a fine in the district court for their dog at large, or if they come in and adopt their dog at the shelter or pay for a spay and neuter, that those funds go back to a specific fund, which is a spay and neuter fund, and it's called an animal appreciation fund. And that animal appreciation fund then allows for times for when you have seniors who can't afford to get their animals spayed or neutered, or you have a situation like we have now where we have a shelter that's overrun with animals and no funding to even care for those animals, even though that they have been taken into custody by the county.
And for our edification, that'd be NRS 482.397.175?
Yeah, that's the NRS, that's the appreciation of animals, and that's basically for like the license plate fees. Nye County has a right to a petition to the state of Nevada for a portion of fees. All counties have a portion of these fees that are specialized plates. We have, veterans plates, there's handicap plates, but there's appreciation of animals, there's wild horse, there's a lot of different fees that, or funds that these fees go to, and Nye County should have or should avail themselves of those license plate funds because they are available for the county by state law.
Well, have you any independent knowledge whether those funds are appreciated or used by Nye County?
I have no idea whether they are or not. I would imagine that they aren't, otherwise we'd probably heard about it by now.
Any callers can call in at 727-8750, and maybe someone is more enlightened than we are, and they could call and let us know whether they have any knowledge regarding the appreciation of animals funding that we should be having here in our county.
As you know, we have this animal-related fee schedule and for adoptions and all of those types of things. But basically, this schedule is now moot because they're not adopting dogs out of the shelter. Basically, any animals that come into the shelter are basically impounded animals under the custody of the sheriff. And I'm not quite sure exactly how they have done this, but supposedly other animals are going out to rescues, but I haven't any firsthand knowledge that any animals have left the shelter to go to any rescues anywhere.
No, the fees that were charged, say the dog adoption fee, including spay, neuter, vaccination, rabies, that was $85. Just a dog adoption to a veterinarian to have the before mentioned treatments done is $25. Cat adoption, $55, but if it's through the veterinarian, $15. Dog adoption, so on and so on. My question is, have you any knowledge whether or not those fees, can those turn a profit, or are those just to try to take a bite out of the costs of doing business?
The idea is to kind of try to break even if possible, but most likely to have a dog in the shelter for 3 or 4 days and to have it spayed and neutered is going to probably be right at about $80 with the veterinarian care, the rabies shot, and all those kind of things. So it's really not a money-making proposition. It's more the idea of being a break even.
We have a caller.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I was just wondering on the exotic pets.
I'm sorry, we're trying to get...
We need the volume up on that.
Why is some people allowed exotic animals in our county and others aren't?
One moment, ma'am. We're trying to get the volume turned up so we can hear you. We can barely make out what you're saying.
I'm just wondering, there's a few people in town that have exotic animals, and why are most people allowed to have exotic animals, and one in particular is not? Can you explain that?
Oh, she has her TV turned up.
Oh, okay. Ma'am, could you turn your TV down?
Why are most people allowed to have exotic?
Okay.
Why are most people allowed to have exotic animals?
And some not.
That's a good question. Some folks, exotic animals and exotic animal ownership is a permissive use in Nye County, such as having brothels and fireworks. And there's a division along some of the lines of who's the good people and who are the bad people. And I can only say in my situation that I've had animals for 30 years in Nye County without having any incidents, that some of the people who have come to visit us in Nye County have been of note and notability. And there's been some money spent in hotels and that kind of thing. So the animals are an attraction for some people. And then also in my case, they're my personal therapy animals for my emotional situation of PTSD. So my relaxing with my exotic animals is my personal choice. Now there are retired circus people here. There are some retired magicians. There's a lot of different people that have moved here because Nye County had the illusion of being an open place, but as things tighten up, the rules are tightening up and changing all the time.
So are you saying that it's not fair across the board, or are you saying that there are additional hoops that someone needs to jump through in order to have an exotic animal?
It's not fair across the board. It depends on who's mad at you or who who's not mad at you. It becomes a kind of an arbitrary application of the rules, and it's only being done by certain members of planning and a few people like that who feel they have the authority to make decisions for all the citizens in the county, but I don't know that that's going to be the case when the stuff gets into the federal court.
What federal court are you referring?
We basically, because my animals are emotional support animals, the Americans with Disabilities Americans with Disabilities Act, that's the Justice Department. They're investigating Nye County as whether or not they're violating our constitutional rights to have emotional support animals. And there was also a lawsuit in 1983 violation of civil rights violations because of certain actions taken by employees, members of Nye County, that were contrary to the Constitution and to our rights as citizens.
Okay. Getting back to our caller's question, though, is what if she wanted to, or he, or whoever wanted to have a exotic animal, say it was a cougar, a lion, whatnot. What would they have to do generally to become or get the license to do that?
Well, if you were to come to town now and want to have that kind of an exotic animal, you'd be required to get a conditional use permit from,
that's to the county, correct?
From the county. If it was like a cougar, that's an animal that's protected by the state, so you'd have to have a state permit. But let's say a tiger or a lion, those are not protected, those are not regulated by the state. So you really don't need a state license or a federal license to have those guys. But if you wanted to move to Nye County, you'd have to go through the approval process, and I can only say that it's a laborious process where they give and take and don't always grant.
What if you're already here?
Well, that's the question. If you're already here, some people say that they are grandfathered, and as we know, the grandfathering came back from the Civil War days when you wanted to prevent the freed slaves from voting. Their grandfathers had to have lived in the county for more than three centuries or whatever it was, but the grandfathering clause is where it becomes it's an unfair application of the rules. If this person can have tigers without a permit, then that person should be able to have tigers without a permit if they're in the legally zoned area for that kind of activity.
Okay, and we've got 1 minute before we're taking our first break, but getting back to the grandfather exception, you're able to. I mean, a person who lives here then is able to have exotic animals without jumping through other illegal hoops as a person from out of the county would have to?
That's exactly right. It's a little bit arbitrary.
Interesting. And again, those conditional use permits are granted by the county commission?
By the RPC and then the county commission.
And the county commission is the one that gives the ultimate yes or no?
Yes or no.
Perfect.